Hello there, and welcome to this webinar, Top Trends and Insights, EU Sustainability Legislation. This is an opportunity to learn more about what's happening in the EU when it comes to sustainability, sustainable IT, and procurement policies. We will also have the opportunity to listen in on an interview with one of the women who is working with the development of the French Repairability Index. So my name is Dennis Svärd. I am the Global PR Manager at TCO Development, which is the organization behind the sustainability certification TCO Certified. I will be your host today. And with me today, I have my colleague Barton Finn. Barton is the Purchaser Engagement Manager at TCO Development in the French-speaking part of Europe, including Belgium, France, and the Netherlands. So Barton, what does this mean and what do you focus on?
Thanks, Dennis, and hi to everyone. So, well, basically, purchaser engagement manager, this means that one of my key responsibilities is to provide support and advice to institutional purchasers, so private and public purchasers, who are interested or who are already using TCO certified as part of their ICT tenders. And more generally, I'm also busy providing them with help when it comes to the implementation of sustainable or responsible ICT procurement practices. And in addition to that, maybe relevant for today, I'm also acting as EU coordinator on behalf of TCO development. And that means that, among others, I'm keeping an eye on, or I'm trying to keep an eye on the relevant legislations that are either impacting us or stakeholders.
Thanks, Barton. And can you maybe start the webinar with giving a short general introduction to the main EU initiatives we currently have on our radar and why it is so?
Yes, of course. And I must say that you're asking me a quite tough question, Dennis, because there are so many of them. So what I would like to do is maybe to focus on the main aspects that we are focusing on and following out of all the different legislations that we have currently on our radar. So yeah, here there are, I think, three things that I would like to mention, especially three aspects that we are really interested in right now. The first one would be an ongoing shift that we see from a legislative perspective, from voluntary sustainable public procurement towards mandatory sustainable public procurement. So that would be definitely the first thing that comes to my mind. Secondly, I would also mention our work and the fact that we're following the different evolutions when it comes to the eco design requirements for ICT products in Europe. And I guess the last thing that I would like to mention is connected to the introduction of new obligations when it comes to providing information on the sustainable aspects and merits of products that are sold on the EU market.
Can you tell us more about that and why it's important? So maybe we can start with the switch from voluntary to mandatory.
Yes, of course. So here, let's maybe start with the general conclusion that most policymakers working on that topic share. And that conclusion is that voluntary sustainable public procurement is just not working, meaning that it's not delivering the intended results. And what I mean by that is that currently, if you look at public tenders in the European Union, the vast majority of them do not include, or really to a marginal extent, sustainability criteria. And that means that it's a bit of a missed opportunity because it means that European tenders are not used to their full extent from a driving sustainability perspective. And faced with that observation, policymakers really decided to move from voluntary to mandatory public procurement criteria and requirements to be included in European tenders. So it's already the case in some member states of the European Union. I'm thinking about Italy and France. But what is really interesting right now is that it's being discussed and considered at the EU level. So there is a draft legislation which is called the Sustainable Product Initiative Regulation. And as part of that draft legislation, there is the possibility for the Commission to introduce mandatory green or sustainable or social public procurement criteria. And that is a big shift because, of course, it means that um, so far it was done on a voluntary basis. And now, if this goes through, and I'm confident it will go through, public purchasers will not have the choice anymore to include sustainability criteria and requirements in their tendering processes.
Perfect. So let's go to the evolution of eco design requirements.
Yeah, so that's definitely another aspect that we're looking at. It's important for us, but also for our stakeholders. And just a quick reminder here. So when we are referring to the EU eco design requirements, we are basically referring to the minimum sustainability performances that products have to fulfill in order to be sold on the EU market. And what we have seen is that so far these requirements have focused on energy efficiency of products, mostly electronic products. And what is really interesting is that we see the number of areas being included in these eco design requirements. We see the number of areas expanding and growing right now. So coming back to the legislation I was referring to before, so the Sustainable Product Initiative regulation, as part of that draft legislation, there is also the possibility for the Commission to introduce new minimum sustainability requirements when it comes to, for example, the robustness of products, the durability of products, the reliability of products, also including the software perspective, and also the chemical composition of products. And that is also really interesting because so far these types of obligations only focused on energy efficiency, and now we're seeing that it's being expanded to include more areas connected to circularity and sustainability.
Okay, and finally, let's go and listen to new information requirements.
Yes, and that is also something that is quite interesting. I mean, working for a sustainability certification, everything that is connected to information and credibility is really important for us and again for stakeholders. And what we're seeing right now is new obligations being introduced by countries and being discussed at the EU level when it comes to sustainability features of products. And I guess here the main purpose of these new obligations is to empower consumers and buyers as well, so institutional buyers and private consumers, to make more responsible decision when it comes to choosing a specific product, in our case, a specific ICT product. And that goes through, according to, and I agree with this, according to the legislators, that goes through an increased availability of information on the sustainability performances and merits of products sold in the EU market. And here there are a lot of hot topics, I would say, and a lot of different elements and aspects that are connected to that. But if I had to pick one, I would probably mention the different work streams that are connected to the repairability of products and the durability of products. I mean, we know from a sustainability perspective that one of the best things that you can do is to use your products for as long as possible, and reparations and durability play an important role in that perspective. And so I think it's really interesting to see some innovative work being done in France, but also being discussed at the EU level about giving more information to consumers and to buyers regarding to which extent the product that they are considering to buy are repairable or durable over time.
That's great, Barton, and that's actually a perfect transition to my next question. What are we going to see now, Barton?
Yes, so we're going to see an interview that I had with Lise Breteau. So Lise Breteau is a French attorney working at the French bar, but she's also working for an organization which is called Green IT. And Green IT is, I would say, probably one of the most important organizations in France, but also in Europe when it comes to being active on the topic of sustainable IT, responsible IT, and green IT. And Lise, within Green IT, is following and leading the different policy work and the engagement of the organization towards relevant legislation regulations that are impacting the different topics that I've just mentioned. And as part of her capacity within Green IT, Lise is directly involved in the French or the work that is going on in France around the repairability and the durability index, since Lise is sitting in one of the working groups, which is responsible for developing the upcoming durability index and for following up on the implementation of the repairability index. So what we're going to listen to now is a part of an interview that I did with Lise in order to jump a bit more into the details of how the current French repairability index is being implemented, what are the next steps with the durability index, and what learnings can we draw also from this French experiences.
And after the interview, Barton will be available to answer questions. So please take the opportunity to write your questions in the chat while listening to the interview. And the interview is pre-recorded since Lise wasn't available today. And Barton and Lise had so much good discussions. So we had to edit the video quite a bit, which means the full interview will be available later on our website. I think it will be tomorrow. You will all receive an email when that happens. So let's listen to the chat you had with Lise Breteau last week.
Awesome. As a quick introduction, I'll just mention that circularity is being promoted heavily at the EU level. Within that context, product longevity, so the fact of extending as much as possible the usable lifetime of a product, plays an important role in that space. And so, of course, we at TCO Development, we have our eyes on these key developments, and we have been especially looking at what's happening in France right now, because we think that France has been or has taken a bit of a pioneering role in that space, among others, by introducing a product repairability index. And so, having heard your expertise and the fact that you are in charge of the regulatory affairs and the different activities from Green IT connected to yeah, the topic of sustainable IT and Green IT, the first question that I would like to ask you here is, could you quickly present to us what the French Repairability Index is, where does it come from, and how is it being used or implemented today?
Yes. So the Repairability Index was set up in France in 2020. Mm-hmm. It was a law passed in 2020, a so-called AGEC law. AGEC standing for the fight against waste and for the circular economy. Mm-hmm. So this repair index is effective since 2021 for a series of devices. All the devices currently concerned by the repair index are, let's say, IT equipment accessible to the general public. Mm. So we are talking about laptops, smartphones, televisions, and other types of household equipment, like washing machines, etc. So if we focus on smartphones and IT equipment, this index is effective since 2021, and it's built up on a series of criteria, and the score is the total of each sub-score on each criteria which are defined in the regulations. Mm-hmm. So it includes to what extent this product has spare parts available. What is the price of the spare parts? Mm-hmm. Do we have easy access to the documentation for repairability? Is the product easy to dismantle for repairing, either by a professional or by the user themselves? So it's a quite complete series of these sub-criteria which give you a final mark and a final display with a score out of 10, with a design associated for its display in shops and on online platforms.
Okay, and that's really, I mean, that's really interesting, and we'll come back to this idea of how it's being used and where it's displayed. But I'll just want to go back to the fact. So you mentioned that the index has been in application for roughly 2 years. So
Mhm.
I guess there has already been some. I mean, we can already take a bit of learnings out of the implementation. So I wanted to ask you, according to you now, and with the expertise and the experience after 2 years, what would be, according to you, the successes, but also the maybe the challenges that have been connected to the implementation of that repairability index, or that have been discovered following its implementation?
Yeah, well, so what we can see as a success is, first of all, raising awareness in the public and also among, let's say, professional purchasers
Mm,
on the fact, on the importance of assessing the repairability of equipment, of
mm,
IT equipment, which was which was not an issue before.
mm,
Or which was discussed on a very informal way.
mm,
Here now we have a basis for analysis and discussion in a very structured grid with
mhm,
objective criteria. So it's very interesting to have this new tool. And as an attorney, I can tell you that you obtain a lot by discussing,
mm,
negotiating contracts, etc. So this grid, this new grid, can be part of the contractual documentation,
mm,
even in a professional context.
mm,
Although the index is primarily destined to consumers,
mhm,
it's still open to use by anyone.
mm,
So that's a big success. We have this new tool available in all kind of discussions, uh, and and in the longer term, hopefully, it can highlight the importance of the industry of repairing things, everything,
yeah.
which is for which is still quite a confidential market,
Mm,
which is not very well structured, which is not subject to a very clear legal framework. So this is being this starts this index starts well is a starting point to start discussing and developing this industry and this market.
mm,
So that's for the successes. And of course, the ultimate goal is to lead and to pull the industries towards more sustainable practices
mm,
and towards more eco-design for their
mm,
products, of course. So these are, well, the success we can see now or we hope for in the longer term. Talking about the challenges, when you build up such a complex index, you have to find the right balance between having a strong index with a high ambition in
mm,
terms of quality and in terms of substance, and the current state of the market and what you can request from manufacturers on D-Day.
mm,
You can't set ambitions that would be too high and have an index which nobody would score on.
mm,
So you have to adjust a minimum to the current market, but at the same time, you need to have a certain level of ambition to pull the market and to pull the industry toward more sustainability and more repairability. So
mm.
that's sometimes a very fine balance to find.
let's move on. And you've mentioned in the beginning that you are involved also in the work that is going on right now, actually, for evolving, if I can say so, the current repairability index towards a durability index. So yeah, here I wanted to let you know, to ask you, sorry, if you could tell us a bit more about this. How are you exactly involved in this work towards the durability index, and how is this work structured, and what is the kind of timeline for the durability index to be applicable?
Yeah, so the repairability index is effective since a couple of years now,
Hmm.
and it's supposed to be either complemented or replaced by another index, which was also set up by the AGEC law in 2020,
Hmm.
which is the durability index, as you just mentioned. And the both these indexes are built up under the lead of the public authorities,
Hmm.
namely the ADEME in France, the French Agency for the Ecological Transition.
Hmm.
And so the ADEME gathers several, let's say, stakeholders.
Mm.
So there are manufacturers, there are environmental NGOs like Green IT, and also HOP, I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
and also, of course, other public authorities like the Consumer Protection Authority, etc. So all these people are gathered in working groups to build up first the repairability index, its updating, and the durability index.
Mm.
So there's a lot of work being done in these meetings, and that's how the public authorities wanted to build this index, by getting the opinion of all the stakeholders active on the market and active on the, let's say, the more general debate on sustainability and IT.
Mm. Mm. Okay, and so to get a bit more practical, the question I would like to ask you now, I mean, we've understood that either it will be a kind of merge, so the repairability index will become the durability index, or they will live parallelly. But the question I would like to ask you is, what is actually the difference between a repairability index and a durability index? So I guess, I mean, we're talking about a bit the same idea, but what are the new areas that will be added, so that we can have a durability index instead of something that is only focusing on repairability?
Yeah.
What are the areas that you are discussing right now?
So the durability index includes the repairability aspects, which were already discussed, but adds to that criteria on reliability and robustness
Mm.
of the equipment. So it goes a bit beyond repairability, strictly speaking, and focuses also on the lifetime of the equipment, and possibly, why not, the possibilities to refurbish it.
Mm.
I mean, it can also be an ultimate goal in this durability index, and also the robustness. So it focuses more on lifetime and quality of the equipment.
Is there anything that, in terms of learnings, that you want to take into account in the work around the durability index, connected to the learnings of the repairability index? I mean, we've mentioned verification, we've mentioned a couple of things here in terms of successes, awareness raising, and all of that. Um, is there some things that you would like to share in terms of learnings that are being taken into account as part of the work that you're doing, that you're doing around the durability index?
Yes, well, one of the key issues we discussed, well, one of the key issues in the opinion of Green IT,
Hmm.
and uh, and uh, that allows me to go back to your previous question about reliability, etc., how the durability index is enriched, let's
Yeah.
say, compared to the repairability index, is
Hmm.
that we are going to focus a bit more or try to address the issue of software updates.
Mm.
So how long can you use your computer, provided that you get the relevant updates for a certain time? And so OS updates in particular are
Yeah.
addressed in the durability index. And that's a really key issue, because we know that software updates and software in general often lead to obsolescence
Mm.
of equipment. Uh, so that's a very key issue, which is not really addressed in the repairability index.
Mm.
And we try to highlight this issue in the durability index.
Yeah, thank you, Barton, and also thank you to Lise. So the full interview will be available on demand tomorrow. You will all receive an email about this. And we have some questions, Barton, here. So let's see where we can start here. We got an early question. How will the EU verify the claims that companies make and ensure that companies do what they commit to?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that connects with another legislation which is being discussed right now at the EU level, which is the Green Claim Initiative. And it's a good question because I think the question underlines the importance and the need of independent verification, in the sense that when it comes at least to the allegations that are being made on products based on their sustainable performance or whatever, the issue right now is that most of it, if not all of it, are based on self-declaration. And that's something that the EU is currently considering to correct by introducing more requirements when it comes to the backing of whatever claims is being made, and the verification of the underlying calculation when it comes, for example, to the topic of the repairability index. So it's something that is being discussed and that still needs to be to be seen how this will be verified. But in the meantime, I think that that underlines the need for independent verification for the credibility of all these different claims, which is, I guess, also one of the value which is being provided by a certification such as TCO certified.
Thanks, Barton. And we have another question here about the new eco design requirements that are coming. What does that mean for purchases?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. So from my perspective, I think that I see, so I look at procurement with a specific lens, and to me, procurement is, among other things, an opportunity to drive sustainability. And so, from that perspective, if legal requirements about products, so legal requirements that product have to fulfill no matter what, are being updated, it's important for purchasers and institutional purchasers to be aware of this and to take this into account in whatever requirements they're going to include in their tenders. Since and I still often see this in the tenders that I'm reviewing and with the purchasers I'm helping with day to day. Sometimes the requirements that are being, from a sustainability perspective, the requirements that are included in a tender, they are basically asking for products to comply with the law. And I think that that's a bit of a missed opportunity, because the purpose of sustainable procurement is to push the industry further than what is legally required. And so from that perspective, I think this introduction of new sustainability requirements, mandatory sustainability requirements for products, means that purchasers will need to upgrade and to increase the level of their sustainability requirements in order to make sure that they continue to drive sustainability beyond what is just legally required.
Great, thanks. And we have a follow-up question on that actually. Will the eco design requirements apply to products which are already placed on the market?
I mean, yeah, it basically one. So as I said, the legislation is still at a draft stage, so it still needs to be formally agreed by the different parties within the EU institutions that need to agree on the draft legislation so that it can become a law. But basically, yes, any new product that will be put on the EU market once the legislation will be applicable will have to comply with these new requirements.
Thanks, Barton. And yes, we have a question about the EU election coming up as well. What can we expect? What are the impacts of the upcoming elections?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Of course, we're talking of something political, and by nature, I would say that it's hard to yeah, to predict exactly what is going to happen. But what I can say right now and what I'm seeing is that I think sustainability will continue to be pushed quite heavily at the EU level. And I think that when we're talking about the initiatives that we've discussed, so the repairability index and that really sustainable public procurement, the fact of providing more information on the sustainable merits of products, I don't expect this to go away. And I think it will continue. And I think they will still have, we can still expect a wide support from the new parliament for these types of measures. But that being said, we also have to take into account the current economic and political landscape. And I mean, what I mean by that is that we're faced with other challenges that are also making it more difficult for companies and economic actors to prioritize sustainability as much as we could have thought before all these crises. So that might also a bit balance the extent to which sustainability will be promoted and sustainable legislations will be the ambitious nature of sustainability legislation. So I would say that in a nutshell, I think whatever Parliament will have following the elections in June next June, sustainability will still be heavily promoted by the new members of the European Parliament. But it's true that for certain files, the ones that are the most controversial, we might have a bit of a setback because of the current situation right now in Europe.
Thanks. And let's see here. We can probably have time for a couple of more questions. We have one here. Do you expect, do you expect that the French Repairability and Durability Indexes will be adopted by the EU?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I think that the French experience definitely has influenced the discussion at the EU level. I know that the EU is already working on a scoring mechanism or a scoring framework on the repairability of products and ICT products. It's not mandatory yet, at least for most product categories, but I'm confident that this will come in the coming month or years. Yes, I think so.
Great, Barton. Let's see if we have time for one more question here. Yes, I think you touched upon this, but what added value have sustainability certifications, eco labels when it comes to new information requirements, repairability index, etc., etc.?
Yeah. So as I said so far, and let's take the example of the French Repairability Index. Currently, the scores that are being displayed according to that French Repairability Index, these scores are being self-calculated by brands. So as Lise said, I think it's really great that we have such an initiative right now. I think that from an awareness perspective, that from a momentum building perspective, it's really great. But we also have seen some issues being connected with the fact that these scores are being self-declared or self-calculated by the brands themselves for their own products. And I think that the value of a certification such as TCO certified, for example, is to bring trust, standardization, and a common reference for all products to be assessed against the same standards, so the same calculation method, and also for all products to be independently assessed. So I think that that's where really the real value of sustainability certification or eco label, such as TCO certified, lie in this ability to provide independent verification on whatever score is being communicated, and to have this within a common framework where there is really a comparability between products.
Thank you, Barton. I think actually that's all we have time for. So the webinar will be, as usual, available on demand via our website tomorrow, tcocertified.com, and you will all receive an email when this happens. And on our website, you can also find more in-depth info about our work to help the purchasers with EU legislation as well. So please feel, oh, Barton, yes,
Yeah, Dennis, may I
yeah,
squeeze three more
yes,
sentences? I just
please
wanted
do.
to thank again Lise for doing the interview with me, and to a greater extent Green IT. That's much appreciated. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. If you have any question for Lise, focused on the repairability or durability index in France, just let us know, and we'll make sure to forward your questions to Lise. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is, if you have any question regarding what we have discussed, or sustainable ICT procurement in general, I just want to remind that we have a dedicated purchaser engagement and support team that is present and here to help you. So feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help.
That's great, Barton. That's a perfect summary of what I was going to say as well. So I think that's we should end this webinar right now. I want to thank you, Barton. I want to thank Lise, and thanks everyone for listening in. Bye until next time.
Thanks, Denise, and thanks to everyone.